Hello, Star Wars fans. Hey, there's just 206 days until Christmas 2021. And today we're going to do a deep dive review of another High Republic novel. We're getting ready for the fourth novel to come out. This is meant for children. The age group for Test of Courage is 8 to 10, I think, is what they market it as. And we're going to jump into that discussion here in just a second. I want to first introduce who all we have with us today. We have, let me get to, I think, nope, this screen. There we go. We've got Levi here from All New Nerds. And Levi, thanks for joining us again.
Thank you for having me. That music just doesn't get old, does it? It's so incredible each time.
I had help from Russell, who put together that intro for me. So thank you so much. And our good friend Gray. Gray is back for another book review. Good morning. It is morning for you, right?
Yes, it's like 9 a.m. for me.
Yeah, you and Levi both are out there.
9:01.
And we have another guest who is supposed to join us soon. Darth Choco. He's accepted an invite and said he would be here with us. So we'll expect Darth Choco to drop in. But it is morning. It is morning out there on the West Coast. So we appreciate you guys getting up. And Gray, you were talking about, just as we were getting ready to come on, the age group marketed for this book versus its reading level. Please share with folks what you shared with us.
So it's marketed for 8 to 12, and I would say it's more like 10 to 14 age group. It has some very large words, and my daughter is turning 8 in 3 months, and I have to say she could never, it wouldn't even come close to reading vehemence, curmudgeonly, disquieted, and I just don't feel that is tailored to the right age group if they were supposed to be attempting to read that on their own. And if I have to Google what the words are, I could say I definitely just don't think that that's meant for that age group, because I don't know what vehemence means.
Well, I will say it is a shorter read, and
very short.
And the characters' age groups, I think, play well to that age group. But you're right when it comes to some of the vocabulary used. But Levi, you had a response as well. I think. Go ahead.
Well, I think it's funny that you say that about like 8 to 12 and then way more 10 to 14, because that's the way I felt about the characters' ages in this book. Like, they all said they're one age, but I'm like, you feel at least like 2 or 3 years older than that. You know, they all acted well above their age, and so I thought it was funny that you mentioned that, because like appropriately the book scales the way the characters act. Like it was funny to me that, like, yeah, I'm 12. I'm like, all right, yeah, sure, you're 12. Okay. I don't know what I was doing at 12, but it wasn't that.
I do want to just bring up this. I've got some images here. This is the cover from the book, and we've got the major characters here. We'll talk about them briefly, but it is kind of scaled down from a character width, and so just to give folks an idea of the story itself, this it's another High Republic novel. It takes place shortly after the events of Light of the Jedi. So the hyperspace event has already happened, and people are responding to it. And there's been all kinds of tragedies and incidents. And we've got it kind of opens up on a luxury vessel. Luxury vessel. That's how I took it anyway.
The Steady Wing.
The Steady Wing. Yeah, it's kind of a new ship and meant for luxury. Everything that reads in it is super clean, luxurious, all the best amenities that you could have. And it was only traveling with about 30% of capacity. And then a major event happens that knocks it off course. So again, this is a bit of okay, Dale. He's got some latency. So okay, well, Dale, we'll hopefully you catch up here soon. So I want to bring up this is a spoiler filled. We're going to be discussing the details of the book. We'll be sharing what happens and who. So if you've not read it, you want to save that. But I feel like this book as a whole has kind of flown under the radar from everybody. I don't know that I've seen it covered much from any of the Star Wars channels, and it's probably due to its age group. But as Grace said in the opening, it reads a little bit higher than preteen. Let's put it that way. It reads a little bit higher than preteen, and maybe closer to 12 to 14, but it is marketed 8 to 12, so that preteen era. But anyway, we're going to jump into. I keep looking for Darth Choco. I've got a message out to him, so apologize for.
And can we put a spoiler on the other High Republic stuff too? Because I want to get into how it connects and stuff.
Oh, okay, very good. Yeah, and that's a good point. We will, as the discussion takes us, maybe jump into some of the other novels or comics, other content that ties in, because they have been working really hard to tie everything together. And there are parts. Skier, for example, makes a show and he's missing his arm. So that happened in another book.
And I wanted to mention it for Mark. Mark Hamilton mentions the comic run, the Marvel comic run. This takes place before that. It takes place after Light of the Jedi, concurrently with Into the Dark, but before those comics. So
perfect. So the book opens and you got two villains that are introduced. They're both Nile, but they don't. You don't find out until later. And let me just share who those are here. We've got one is called Clyneth Da. It's a human female. She's got dyed hair, lots of piercings, that kind of thing. And then we also have Gwishy, who's an Aqualish. And again, I get confused in my head when I hear Aqualish. I think of the guys with the green guys with the fins on the sides of their heads. So bring this up so you see it's more like the tarantula kind of guy.
It's Pondababa from the guy who messes with Luke in the bar on Tatooine.
Yeah. That's they're more the tarantula looking kind of guys, right? What's his name in Clone Wars? General.
Trench.
Oh, that's not Trench.
Yeah, that's
Trench
a
is
different.
not Aqualish.
That's a different species.
Mhm.
Trench is a rat. It sounds like arachnid. It's some play on spider thing. But no, yeah.
Gotcha. So these two are they're on the ship and they are messing with it, right? They disable a lot of the systems. They plant explosives. They put all kind. They take care of all of the escape pods are rigged. Everything to make it a space tragedy. And when the kind of booby traps all explode and they go off, there's some confusion on the ship whether this is part of the hyperspace incident, some parts flying out and smacking the ship, or what. And we find out that it was because of these Nihil, due to Gwishy and what's her name in it? Clyneth
or something like that.
Yeah, something like that. It's due to their booby trapping, and they're really out in the middle of nowhere almost, right?
They're on the edge of space because for the viewers. So this ship, the Steady Wing, is an ambassador ship. It's a consulate ship, and they're heading to Starlight Beacon for the sort of ceremony that opens it. This is a system. Dalnon, I believe, is a system, and they're sort of courting the people to join the Republic. But the Nile now having declared war with the Jedi and the Republic after the end of Light of the Jedi, so it's like open warfare. They want to send a message to the Republic that they're not welcome in this part of space, and so they're going to bomb this consular ship and kill everybody on board to be like, yeah, no, you're not. This is our territory, because this is sort of out on the rim. A lot of the High Republic takes place way out on the frontier, and so this is meant to be like a message.
Yeah, and they have to travel in sublight speed in normal space through parts of it because of the incident. So normal hyperspace lanes are restricted, and so the trip's going to be a bit longer than anticipated, and they're making their way from one safe passage to another. And when this happens, there's no planet nearby for them to just escape to, which is sort of an important thing because it comes up very quickly. The four main characters, and I want to cover those again for folks that haven't watched. We've got first is Vernestra Rowe. Now, Vernestra shows up in other content. She is teenage who has already passed her Jedi trials. She's very, very young. One of the youngest in, they say, over like 200 years, I think it is.
I think they just say in a while. I don't know if they specify.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure they said over 200 years, but in a long time. But in either event, she's one of the youngest ever to pass her Jedi trials. So she's already a Jedi. We've seen her species before, right? She's very with Luminara.
She's Mary Allen.
Yeah, right. Mary Allen, same as Luminara and
Barriss
Offee, right? So this is the same species, Vernestra, and so she gets a little bit of criticism from folks because of her age, from folks that are aware of her.
I have to be on that train. The idea that she's a Jedi Master at 15, I just can't get on board with that.
Yeah, Jedi Knight.
She's a knight.
That's what I meant, a Jedi Knight. At 15, no, I mean, I just...
Right. She's very young, and she has a purple lightsaber, which, you know, we've seen before. A lot of people get confused in some of the artwork because of its coloring looks kind of pink. People have said, been very critical to say, you know, what's up with the pink lightsaber? It's not pink, it's purple. But it's just some of the coloring. It can be a little confusing. We've seen that before as well. Just to be fair, we've seen that purple lightsabers often appear a little pink hue due to coloring. It's not new to her. It's not like they're changing lightsaber colors to send some sort of message or be different. We saw the same thing with other purple sabers.
Even then, pink is canonized in Jedi Fallen Order. You can get a pink saber in that.
Good point. But so I just want to, you know, kind of calm people down who kind of caught onto this wave that she has.
It's magenta, not pink, man.
So Vernestra, she's a Jedi Knight, 15 years old, teenager.
She's 16 in the book, though.
Yeah, I know she's 16 by the end. I think she got her. I think she passed her trials at 15, right?
She did. She passed them at 15, but she's 16 in the
yeah, so she's 16, and I guess we can kind of jump ahead. I want to not go all the way there, but at the end of the book, she does take on a Padawan. So she's 15 years old, already a Jedi Knight.
Gray is not pleased.
No, I am not. I would say that Padawan is scheduled for failure. A 16-year-old Matt. Sorry, I like the story of this book. I do. I like the stuff I learned from it, but there are just a handful of things that I was just not pleased with this book.
There's a couple things I want to get to as well. But the other thing about Vernestra, and the thing that I'm not all that thrilled with, but I understand it's canonized before. This isn't the first time we've ever seen it. It's been in the extended universe, and we see it even in the Bad Batch, the concept of a light whip. Her lightsaber it has two modes: lightsaber mode and light whip mode. And I don't think it's new for light whips to be in Star Wars, but I wasn't crazy about the light whip concept.
Isn't those the like wolf type people that
It's like Gideons,
Like
don't they use the light whips? But they're different, right? But they use them in a
Well, I don't think they're powered by kyber crystals.
right.
It's the same concept, and as
I-
Santa mentioned, it's not new. As Vernestra herself mentions that it's a design from the Sith Wars, which I thought was pretty cool.
And so that's the part I do like about the book. This is where I start finding it interesting. I like that she's kind of nervous about showing that she changed her lightsaber and that nobody knows it. I thought that was very, very interesting. And I like that their little play with the dark side in this book with
Emery
and honesty. Was it? It was just Emery and honesty, which that name.
Yeah. So let's get there. So Vernestra, we've introduced her. Vernestra is traveling with this young human female. She is, I think, 10 in the book. Is that right?
What, Avon?
Avon
is 12, I believe.
12. Okay, so Avon Staros, she is super smart. She's one of these that graduate college when they're like 14.
Avon Staros, might I say. Last name important, Staros.
It is important. We'll get back to that. She is extremely intelligent. She's an inventor. She's constantly curious about things. She's tweaking her servant droid to try to give it.
I like that. J6. I thought that was funny.
That little tweak to the code that she did to make the droid slowly start
rewrite itself,
its own responses and rewrite its own program.
Very K2SO. Very K2SO. I thought that was
very much so.
It.
And her droid started off as a bit of a defense droid, more of a combat ready kind of thing, but was modified to be a servant, a nanny droid. And so she has a bit of an adversarial relationship with her nanny droid and keeps tweaking with it to give it personality. She's not extremely fond of the overprotective nature of the droid itself. And she's a preteen. And so she's, experimenting with things. She's extremely smart. And as Levi said, she is well-connected, right? Her last name's Staros. Go ahead, Levi. Tell us about her family connection.
The Star Wars family is a long line of badass ladies. So even in the context of this book, right, with J6, the droid we're talking about, she has this adversarial relationship with it because it's representative of how overbearing her mother is, and her mother is like a junior senator right now, from Chandrilla, actually, I think, representing not Chandrilla, Hosnian Prime.
Awesome.
But Staros later on in like the original trilogy timeline, Sana Staros, which I'm pretty sure is confirmed to be a descendant of these characters, is someone who mixes and is rough and tumble with all the OT cast, and she is a foil to Han Solo and somebody who knows Han Solo, and it's a pretty cool character.
Is she in books or like
she's in comics? Yeah,
in comics. Okay.
Yeah, she was introduced in the main Star Wars run back in 2015.
Was she his love interest?
No, not really. They got married at one point as like part of a job, but they weren't actually romantically involved.
Okay.
Yeah. So so her mother is a junior senator, and so they're well connected. But there's something else about Avon that I think is going to come into play as her story unfolds. She's not too fond of the Jedi. She's a bit jealous, and
there's some pretty interesting, if I may. She, like her, you're right. She's super curious, especially about the Jedi hoarding the power of kyber crystals and wanting to research
lightsabers.
And I'm like, that research that she may do in her future life could Galen Erso could look at that, and Orson Krennic could look at that and be like, yeah, we can use this. She talks about a lot about how you could really use this power for something. I was like, ugh.
And doesn't she actually get one at the end? Doesn't she take a broken lightsaber and
she steals the light? She steals
Emery, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
she steals a kyber crystal at the end. At the beginning, she's working with different kind of crystals, um,
Yeah.
experimenting with them, doing different things with them, and it's kind of pointed out. And she keeps asking Vernestra, who they call Vern, just
Vern.
short. You see Vern in there a lot. Vernestra Rowe. They see her, and she's constantly asking, "Hey, can I look at that? Can you light it for me? Can you show me this, that, the other thing?" And Vernestra's like, "No." And the other thing, though, is not only is Avron a little bit envious of the kyber crystal deal, she's curious about it, but she doesn't really like the mystery behind Jedi powers as a whole. She's not. Yeah.
Sorry. I like when she was telling, I can't remember who she told, that she never lets me hold her lightsaber, and they were like, well, it's akin to asking them to borrow their undergarments,
Which is funny for preteen.
Yeah, I thought that was funny. I actually like that line.
As Obi-Wan says, this weapon is your life. So
Yeah. The next character that I want to just introduce, because it's all these are kind of core, is Emery Kantaros. Emery.
Yeah.
Emery is a Padawan, and his Jedi Master is traveling with him on the vessel when the incident happens that the Nihil have set up. So everything starts to explode. Hulls open up to the vacuum of space, and there's this great big event. As a result of it, Emery ends up in a different room than his master. His master did that on purpose to save Emery, but understanding that he was given his own life, and that's what happened. So Emery,
right?
Yes, Emery's Jedi Master. Emery's Jedi Master dies, and Emery is a really young. He's the same age approximately, just a hair younger than Vernestra. I think he's 14 or 15.
14,
she's 16. Like, he's just behind her, but here she's a Jedi Knight already, and he is a true Padawan. Even his lightsaber, they describe, he hasn't mastered putting it together. So his lightsaber isn't as powerful, strong, clear as others his age. So he is a little slower on the progression, and contrast that to Vernestra, who is ahead of the progression. And this is one of the things that I think people who are really, really sensitive to the gender politics thing going on can be extra sensitive to. The female is advanced, really powerful. The male is under age and still fumbling, right?
I'll be honest, I didn't think of this once.
I didn't either.
reading the whole thing.
Santa likes to point out things that I never think of.
Well, I only do because I've been in so many arguments with these folks.
I know why you're doing it. I know that people hop on you all the time about that.
And I'm constantly like, I don't care. That's not a leading thing for me. I'm about the story and the characters. And then take away the gender part.
Me too.
You've got two young Force users, one who's advanced, one who's struggling, about the same peer group, and you can understand what kind of chemistry that might create between the two. Male, male, female, female, male, female. It doesn't matter. That was going to cause some bit of jealousy, envy, issues, maybe superiority. You could think of all the things that would happen if you were to take a couple
jealousy.
Yeah. Which is important. You say that way, even. That think about some preteens, right? Yeah, Gray, I know you're a parent of a preteen. I've raised two girls through that age.
Oh, I have like two 20-year-olds, so I'm very aware of the preteen age and what they are actually like.
And you've got one right now. So it's a joy. It's a pleasure to be raising a preteen. It's actually not that bad. It gets worse when they are actually teens. But Levi, you're just on the other side of that, right?
I'm just made it out. I was a preteen a decade ago or so maybe I can speak to it.
Yeah. Well, it's you can imagine to take a couple of sixth graders, and one who's really advanced and succeeds at everything, and another that is struggling to even master the most basic thing or one of the core things that are important.
But as you mentioned, yeah, his master was sort of his rock in like keeping him, reassured of himself. But now that, as Santa mentioned, his master is dead, he's sort of all he's left with are a lot of negative feelings. And so
negative feelings,
plays
doubt.
into this dynamic.
It absolutely does. Doubt, fear, and anger. Lots and lots of anger. Emery, throughout the book, is really struggling with how his master's life was taken. And when he learns that it wasn't just a random event, that it was actually an attack, he's very angry about it. And he wants to take out vengeance, right?
Yeah.
And but it becomes a problem. It's a really, really big problem for him. Hey, Trinity's made it. Hello there. So that is important. There's another character that we need to bring up, and his name is Honesty. And as Gray said, I'm not thrilled about his name either.
Honesty Weft.
Honesty Weft. Now, Honesty, a human male. Again, he is the son of an ambassador. So he is, again, a pretty well-connected guy. But his dad dies. And he is angry. Honesty is angry. As Emery is also angry. The two of them are really struggling with this this thing that's happened aboard the cruiser, and they connect based on their personalities, I think.
Their shared loss.
Right.
In anger.
And neither of them are dealing with it very well. So you see that Honesty and Emery join together, and they start doing things together. At the same time, Vernestra and Avon, the two girls, have already had a relationship, and they continue that together. So you've got a super smart girl who's very curious, an inventor, with a Jedi Knight girl, teenager, and as opposed to a male Padawan and a male human. So you, in both cases, you've got a Force user and a non-Force user together, and they end up on this shuttle in the middle of nowhere. The shuttle barely has capacity to do anything. It's very low on rations. They don't have an unlimited oxygen supply, and they're too far away. They don't have hyperdrive to jump to another system.
The shuttle was sabotaged along with the ship.
Exactly. In fact, the shuttle was supposed to have been destroyed, but it didn't. It survived, and so it's barely kind of usable. And they're in the middle of space, and they have nothing. There's no planet to go to. They're a bit lost, and it's Emery who has been he's really been trained to like settle himself in the Force and meditate, and with that meditation be able to feel out to other beings in the universe.
It's a lot like how we've seen now. A lot of different Force users have different ability, like Cal Kestis or Quinlan Voss have psychometry. They have that ability to like see echoes through the Force. Emery is, they refer to it a couple times, is what's known as an empath. And so he can really connect to people's feelings. And so what Santa's talking about is he's able to like reach out and sense for feeling and emotion. And you mentioned the like setting himself in the Force. The way the Force is described in this book is really cool.
I like that.
I thought it was
That's
super
the
cool.
best part of the book, I think, is the explaining all the little different parts of the Force and the kids battle with the dark side and that it's the one thing that I think is a very redeeming part of this book.
Yeah, and this is I think notable that Emery has this ability, and Vernestra does not. And Vernestra encourages him. She coaches him and helps him use his ability to reach out further and further into the universe to try to find anything they could direct the shuttle to hope to survive. And as things are quiet and he's meditating, he does like ping. I thought he like ping the source. He's like, oh, I found one. And Vernestra settles in with him, helps augment his power so that he can locate it. And they go there. And they find it is a bit of a jungle moon. It's jungle kind of atmosphere, humid and huge foliage. And they land on this moon in a place that is a bit of a valley. And real quick realize that they need to get to higher ground, or if the rains come in, they could be washed away.
Floodplain.
Yeah, floodplain. Exactly. Dale, Omega's an empath. You know, some people think that's
maybe so.
Maybe we shall see. But it's a floodplain, and they're concerned about it. And it turns out that they really need to be concerned about it because it's a very acidic rain. When the rains do come, they will burn right through your clothing. They create all kinds of, if they hit your skin, it can like a burn. And they realize they're in trouble. So they've got to get to some shelter. And they find a cave up on the hillside that they can go into, but it's blocked by a giant boulder. And Vernestra and Emery use their power to pull the boulder away. And as they do, it rolls down the hill and just by chance happens to smash.
We don't find that out until later, but yeah, it does smash into the Nile ship.
It smashes into the Nile ship and disables them. So they're on the same planet now that the Nile are. The Nile are disabled, and they are hiding in a cave.
Although I think in that moment, I think only Emery is the one who tries to undo it, and he sort of loses control, and he isn't able to stop it because he's not focused. And I wanted to talk about that, and just the Force in general in this book is something that I really liked is. And something that I've always believed about the Force, because a lot of the time, people's are like, why couldn't Luke just do X, Y, or Z in the original trilogy, or why couldn't he just flip it or do this or pull it out of the sky? It's like, I've always interpreted it as like you really have to focus to use the Force, and that's the way it's depicted in this novel.
Just like in the other book when she's like, oh, you can only fly when you don't need to fly.
Yeah, into the dark. Yeah, like you really need to focus and like tap into the Force in order to do these extreme feats. And it's something that people tend to think it's more like a video game where you just click the button and it's like, I can do it, and I got these crazy Force powers. But it's more, I like the way it's depicted as being more emotional.
Well, and Emery's emotions are heightened. And so when he does pull that boulder, you get the impression that it's a little out of control. And that's where Vernestra kind of redirects it. She pushes it from
yeah.
Right. and through him pulling it and her pushing it out of the way, it goes down the mountain and crushes the Nile ship or disables it. Doesn't really crush it. It disables it. And these rains come in and they're in a cave. And they figure out that they can get water and food from fruit that grows on these trees by observing these local creatures. They call them handsies. They're little monkeys.
Yeah.
And they befriend one of them. And it becomes a pet.
Well,
which again comes into play. This little pet handsy that they befriend. It lives with them, sleeps with them, be carried around in like their jacket. It's really cute. but then they discover that the Nihil are down the hill. And when they do, Honesty and Emery are focused on, we need to go kill them.
Yeah,
That's it.
once they figure out that it was sabotage, as you said, and that the Nihil are there, and those are the ones, because the Nihil have come to the moon trying to kill any and all survivors.
Yeah.
And once, as you said, the people who lost someone in the crash, or not in the crash, in the sabotage, see that like that's a way that they can take out their vengeance. Then yeah, they, as you were saying, they get real heated about it. They want to.
They are, and they're focused. Like, we need to do it now, not tomorrow, not later. We're going to go do it right now. And as everybody goes to bed, Emery and Honesty go out on this mission to take out the Nihil ship. And Emery's convinced he can do it. He's got all the confidence and anger. And when they go, ends up that the little pet gets shot and killed by the Nihil. So again, acting out of anger, malice, ends up another loss where they lose this pet. And in that, Darth Choco's coming. So he converted the time wrong, but he's on his way in. Fantastic. So yeah,
that's a hell of a thing.
That's right. That's right. So as this happens, they're discovered. Emery and Honesty are discovered and taken captive by the Nihil. And that's where we'll hopefully get Darth Choco in here. He's jumping on, just waiting for him to get here.
Well, maybe while we're waiting, I wanted to say something that's been on my mind. I'm always been discussing this. It's just the era in general, being the High Republic, is something that people, I don't want to say people, but I feel like it's left out that this era is really different in terms of the way the Force is working. And I feel like that's something that gets left out of the conversation about it a lot. And I think that's why you see something like Vernestra Rowe, who's a 16-year-old taking on a Padawan, is because just the Force right now is operating in such a different magnitude. Like, there's a lot of talk about how, like, the Jedi at this point are such a force of light and just ultimate positivity and good that, like, there's a lot of talk of like, oh, well, why wouldn't this work? Like, they don't second guess themselves. And the High Republic is obviously about how the Jedi are going to fall from that. That's sort of what's been teased in all the ends of all these books. Like, this is how the Jedi really start to come undone, which is, I think, is super interesting.
It is, and to tie that in, our Wayseeker, right?
Yeah, Orla.
Orla from Into the Dark. There's Darth Choco. Okay, we'll get him added to the stream. Darth Choco, hello.
I converted the time wrong.
Hey, Choco.
I converted the time wrong. Oh my god, I'm so sorry.
That's all right, my friend. We're kind of taking a little bit of a side, going down a rabbit hole here a little bit with Emery and Honesty have been captured by the Nihil, right? And acted a lot out of anger and frustration in hurt. Right, all these emotions that lead to the dark side, and Levi was just pointing out that there is no dark side like Sith, anything like that they're combating. It's a High Republic, right, and something that the Jedi haven't really had to deal with. And when they do, Into the Dark, we see we see a Wayseeker who's really struggling with the Jedi Order's rules, conflicting with following the Force and trying to figure out how to make that balance. But also the dude that was captured in Into the Dark.
You mean captured in Into the Dark or captured in Light of the Jedi?
Into the Dark.
Into the Dark.
It
The
would be
Jedi. What was his name again?
My goodness, why isn't it coming
He was
to me?
captured by the Dringer.
Not Rail Avaros, but
Rail Avaros is one of the best Jedi.
No, he's
ever.
it sounds just like Ezra's fake name. Think Choco, Ezra.
Jabba the Hutt?
No. He goes by.
No,
He goes by Lando and Jabba in the.
It's Des Ryden. It's like is it Des Ryden?
Des.
Or is it
There you go, Des
Des.
Ryden. That's
Yeah,
it.
Des Ryden, or is it yeah, it is, but like
No, it's Des. You got it right.
It's Des. So Des gets captured by the Dringer, and he's mind controlled. And coming out of that, he decides he needs to go to another kind of program they have for Jedi who are struggling.
a program, yeah.
That allows them to just meditate all the time.
The vow. Yeah.
Right.
Wow, yeah.
Right. And so here we've got another issue, another Force user, Emery, who kind of goes too far. And we'll talk about that in just a second. So Honesty and Emery are taken captive by the Nihil.
Yeah.
Yeah, and they the next morning the girls find out about it, and so they
Dev Morgan. Sorry to interrupt. That's it. Ezra goes by Dev Morgan when he's infiltrating the place, and it's Des
Oh,
and
like
Dev.
that little pig guy. He uses that little pig guy's name that tried to buy Hera.
no,
With as Morgan.
Morgan.
No, sorry. I just remember the name I was thinking of. Dev Morgan and Des Ryden get confused in my head.
I like Choco's answer, Jabba the Hutt,
Jabba the Hutt.
because he did do that a lot.
Yes.
So anyway, they Vernestra and Avon and their droid go down to rescue the boys, and in that process, as they release them, Des, all of a sudden, Des, look what you did to me. Look at Levi.
Sorry.
Emery decides he's going to have a duel with Vernestra.
Yeah. If you get in my way to getting my vengeance, I'm gonna have to go through you.
Yeah.
Whoa.
And he even says, "I'll kill you."
Yeah, I was like, whoa.
Like straight up, "I'll kill you."
That moment was intense, but at the same time, you're like, how? Because we already know Renestra's not one to trifle with, but it was a powerful moment though, for sure.
One thing I like that they pointed out in this book was if a Padawan or a Jedi did meddle with the dark side, it wasn't such a
That's what I wanted to talk about in terms of
they were like, well,
it's a different vibe of the Force. Like
we have to embrace the dark side to experience the Force in a whole. I think they actually state it similar to that in the book, and I liked that because I think the downfall of the Jedi was when they 100% annexed the dark side, and if you even mess with it at all, you are the worst Jedi ever, and it's just forbidden. But in this time frame, it is not. It's actually worked with.
Well, it's not even the dark side. It's just the fact that like mistakes or any sort of any sort of deviance with the strictness of the code. And like I said, we're gonna see hopefully how the Jedi go from how we see them now to being as strict and
I still think that's going to be Yoda who does all that, but we'll see.
And there's a line that she says. She's like, the dark side isn't just one. What exactly was it? It's not just one choice. It's something you choose over and over again.
Choice to be better.
That's
Luke. Bring him back, Luke.
That's a really good point, Dark Choco, because I just watched Star Wars Theories video that he did on the last Vader comic, and
Palpatine says that too.
Oh no, I haven't read the last one. I'm too behind.
Well, are you 12? Well, no, the last one, the
12.
video that Santa's talking about is on issue 11. So if you've read that, you're
I'm
fine.
too behind.
Okay.
So the Palpatine, it is a over and over again. Theory mentions it over and over again. Anakin has to choose to follow, right? So the same thing here. That message is given in this book that in Vernestra. Well, so they have this. They have the battle. Emery, we know his lightsaber isn't full power because he doesn't know how to build them right, and Vernestra doesn't have too much trouble disarming him and overpowering him, right?
Is it bad that every time in the book I had imagined like the Indiana Jones whip noise? She's
I did too. I did too.
Yeah, slice the lightsaber in half. I was like, yeah.
Well, so again, my radar goes up just because of this whole issue, right? Girl beats boy. Boy is, fumbling. I'm like, oh my goodness, the messaging in here isn't anything that it doesn't bother me at all.
I never once thought of it. It's so funny that.
But
continue.
I'm constantly aware of it, and for me, it's something that the fandom has done to me, right?
No.
That's too bad because that takes away from your reading experience.
It does, and I can't help it. I can't help it anymore because every time they get even a sniff of it, and I've been waiting for them to come out with all this narrative about this book, but they just haven't read it, right? They didn't read Into the Dark when they picked on when they picked on The Rock, right? So they certainly haven't read this one. They haven't picked up on Vernestra and Emery.
I've heard some rumblings about Vernestra, but yeah.
Well, I mean, it's it's the same thing, people talk against is, saying, oh, well, we don't want people who aren't fans to, aren't interested in the source material to come in here and push on their politics. But same people will not be interested in the High Republic and will only jump onto it to push their politics. So it's kind of funny.
It's frustrating as a fan who just wants to enjoy the content.
Keep politics out of Star Wars, man. Just utilize the Star Wars politics.
Yeah, and I think they're good characters. We mentioned it before. Like you've got peers between Emery and Vernestra. One is really good at stuff; things come easily for her. Another struggles. So whether you think it's a male and female interaction or not, just think of two peers in how that relationship would be. And here you kind of see it come to a head where Emery just says, I've had it. I don't care who or what you are. I'm going to kill these people. And you get my way, I'll kill you too. And he even tells her, right, I'll kill you too. And he really loses his
and I love the inner monologue that he has where he's like, does that even sound like me? But you sort of, when you're in those like throes of the dark side, and everyone can relate to this, like when you're in that like passionate anger moment, you're not like, you can recognize that you're not thinking straight, but even still, sometimes you just do things you wouldn't normally do, and it's like that's that path to the dark side that we do hear about in.
It really is, and so as they go ahead and take care of business, they capture Vernestra. She overpowers him. It takes his lightsaber away. All of that. And his lightsaber is damaged in the process, isn't it?
Yeah, it's cut in half.
Yeah, cut in half.
Yeah,
that's the one that I think he takes at the end.
Avon gets, Avon takes it.
That's right. And so, Vernestra picks it up and puts it in her backpack, but then just leaves it with her stuff at the very end. But at this point, she overpowers him, and he is really, really remorse. Like, I'm going to get kicked out of the Jedi Order. I've had this huge backsliding event. I don't know if I can do this anymore. It's really defeating on him beyond just losing to her, but that he lost his control. As Levi, you were talking about his inner monologue that you kind of get a follow with. You could see where in his mind he's struggling with what he just did. I think Anakin did that a little bit after he killed all the sand people, right? He killed all the Tuskens, and he comes back and says, I killed them all, right? I killed all these women and the children too. And
to be angry is to be human.
Not quite sure why Padme didn't run in horror when that happened.
It's a different conversation.
Chalk that up to the other things I can't stand about the prequels now that I've rewatched them as an adult.
Well, to me, they haven't aged well because of that.
He was in Anakin's defense. He was very handsome.
You're right. I give it. Hayden Christensen's got to go, and I guess.
I've never, maybe that's why I never related to him very well. Oh, that's great. So anyway, he's really, really struggling, and Skier shows up. you finally get a Jedi Master shows up, and the Jedi arrive. They help clean up. They rescue them.
I don't mean to interject again, but I think it's so funny that it's Skier of all Jedi to be this like force of reason at the end of the book when he is like the most troubled character, one of the most troubled characters of the whole High
I
Republic.
love Skier. Skier's one of my
Going
favorite
down his
Jedi
old like
ever.
his own crazy dark side path, like he's cut off from the forest, and like this guy's like
Simpler
Yeah.
times, man. It was simpler times for sure.
Yeah,
this guy's like yes. I'm like,
yeah. And Skier tells Vernestra, why don't you take him on as your Padawan, Emery? And they make it to the beacon, and Vernestra says, "Hey, how about you come along with me? We've got this relationship now, and we'll learn together." And he agrees to it. So now, not only do you have a 16-year-old Jedi Knight, but she has a 14-year-old, I want to think, Padawan, basically peer. And I know, Gray, that's.
No, I think those are going to be great stories moving ahead. I really do. It just seems like being 15 and a Jedi Master I thought it was a lot longer of a road. I mean, Anakin is not a Jedi Master, and Obi-Wan was young to take on a Padawan, and this just makes it seem like that whole thing was just nothing because this is.
Well,
sorry, Jack, do you want to go?
I was just gonna say Obi-Wan was old for becoming a Jedi Knight. He stayed a Jedi. He became a Padawan older than most. But just
like
talked
25
about
or something in the prequels.
He was 25 as a Padawan. So it was more that he wasn't ready. Also, I mean, I love the book Master and Apprentice.
I do too.
His relationship with Qui-Gon was tenuous at best for a lot. He's like, "What? Why won't you just let me advance?" If you look at most cases, most like Padawans are chosen before they hit their teens, and they normally become knights somewhere around like 18, 19. Her being kind of prodigious becomes a knight at 16. I can see it happening in extreme cases.
I don't even think we can compare the two eras. That's sort of my angle with it. Like the Force is just flowing in such a different way during the High Republic.
So you think it's changed? The Force has changed so much that you can't even compare. To me, the Force is a force, and it's just being interpreted differently per timelines. But I don't think the Force changes.
I think it's the conditions, right? So the Jedi, the Jedi Order as a whole has changed.
Yeah, exactly.
Right, I'm talking about the Force in
general. The Force
general,
itself
not
is
the Jedi
something
Order.
Isn't like quantifiable. Like we can't really define it, right?
Right.
But I think each era. I think each era it is different in the way it operates because the people in the galaxy are different.
Well, so I can see where you're going with that, but to me, the biggest problems are the Jedi Order has kind of changed. The Jedi Order and the
Force users are different.
Right? I just don't think that the Force changes. I think
that's a fair point. I think that's a good way to look at it. I just think that
people use it different, learn it different, utilize it different, teach it different.
Yeah, during this era, we don't have a known enemy like we do during the Clone Wars era either. Right, they were very aware that there was a problem, and they were fighting against it. In this era, they come into it in a time where there's really no adversary.
Yeah, I just interpret it as there's so much light like flowing that someone like Vernestra could be empowered by as it's mentioned a lot in this book. She's like, part of this is my effort, but a lot of this is just the Force.
Like the Sith are still there because they said that the Sith had been gone for 1,000 years, but obviously there's a sect of them alive somewhere. So I mean, there is still. I see what you're saying, though. Yeah, it is different, but the Sith are still there. And at the beginning of Clone Wars, they weren't known. They said that there were no Sith, so it's kind of still the same.
And additionally, we have I mean the balance isn't in between light and dark. It's more like like when you watch the Mortis arc, the daughter is always working in concert and for the father. kind of like how the light side works for the Force, and the dark side is more against it or trying to dominate it, or what you will. So it wouldn't be like there's so much light, because having so much light would be like having a lot of like police officers, if provided they're doing what they're supposed to be doing. It's not gonna, it's like if you have a balance between police officers and criminals, having no criminals at all police isn't going to affect everything negatively. If that makes any sense.
Well, it might affect,
But-
like if you think of Barney Fife and Andy Griffith, right? They lived in a different time, right? In a different kind of situation. Right? Barney only needed one bullet, right? So he never even used it. So it was just a different kind of setting where compared to what you might end up with, say, in 2021 in a urban environment, right? So it's a completely different kind of setting. But I kind of want to get back a little bit to Vernestra being a teenager, having a teenage Padawan. I mean, wouldn't Anakin having Ahsoka as a Padawan? Anakin was late teen, right?
He would have been.
He was 23.
I
He
think
would have been.
No, he
At
was
the beginning
23
of
when he
Force-
turned.
He would have been 19 or 20 when we see him take on.
I
Ahsoka.
thought he was 19 when he got Ahsoka.
Yeah, and Ahsoka
It would be
14.
19 because it was 4 years later that he turned. So
Yeah.
you're right.
So he's 19. Vernestra is 16, 3 years younger. She's
So
not-
sorry.
And he started
It's so hard
later.
to-
I guess it's not that big of a deal.
I was going to
But-
say it's so hard to conceptualize. We're talking about Vernestra, who's 16.
Mhm.
Like Ahsoka in the end of the Clone Wars and like the Siege of Mandalore is supposed to be 17, and it's like sometimes it's like
No.
we forget.
Yeah.
I thought she was 19 by
Well-
the age. She's 19. She was 14 at the beginning of Clone Wars, and by the time the Siege of Mandalore, isn't that?
no,
like
It's
3 years.
it's just like 3.5 years
Yeah, it should
for
be
the
like
Clone Wars,
17.
nearly 4 years.
all right.
Um,
Go ahead.
but yeah, I mean, with that, I think it's interesting because Anakin and Ahsoka, probably not the best influence, but the same can also be said with Obi-Wan and Anakin, because Obi-Wan wasn't necessarily ready. He took on the student the same day he was knighted as well. So it just makes me curious if this is going to be in the future a problematic
And that's what I was
relationship.
thinking
So-
too. It was going to be very similar to the young one not training well enough, and this one's going to go bad. And I don't know. It just seems.
So let's touch on the other part that happened here that I think has some major implications. Emery doesn't have a lightsaber, right? His was broken.
Interesting, because I'm sorry to interrupt yet again, but in the High Republic comic that comes just after this, he does have one.
Well, he gets one, right? But his lightsaber was broken,
He missed
and
another one, yeah.
Kyber crystal was taken, secretly taken, right? Avon overhears that it was picked up and it was in Vern's bag, and so she sneaks into Vern's area, picks up takes the Kyber crystal out, and now she's got this Kyber crystal. We know that she was very curious. She's an inventor. She has a little bit of
She's got the Pandora's box energy.
She really does.
She wants to open it.
she distrusts the Jedi having this power that nobody else does in hoarding these Kyber crystals. Now she's got her hands on one. And what she might do with it, I think the implications are huge. And we mentioned earlier that might it be the precursor to everything that we get with the Death Star?
I don't know about that because the guy who what is the dad's name?
I was saying, like, Galen, I feel like I could see Galen like
Thurso.
looking at this research from 200 years ago. Like, this is
But
pretty
they
cool. Let me go into this
explained-
more.
In the book, they explained where he got his affinity for the Kybers. I can't quite remember, but they explained when he was young what he was into.
I'm
and
just
when
saying, I could see, like, in his research, he maybe was referencing.
Yeah.
part of
Catalyst
her
is a
research.
great book, though.
It is. Catalyst is excellent.
Yeah,
it's actually one of my favorite Star Wars books. I've listened to it at least 10 times. It's a
Wow.
wonderful read.
That's awesome.
So, yeah, that
What is
and Aftermath are
I love Aftermath. And then Master and Apprentice is my very, very favorite. And
mine's
I-
Aftermath and
I really-
Bloodline.
I really
Choco,
wanted to
we
go
didn't
down
talk
that.
about
I really
this.
want to go down that rabbit hole when Dark Choco brought it up. I was like, oh, he brought up the word Master and Apprentice. I love, but
I love Master and Apprentice as well, very much.
Alphabet Squadron. Alphabet Squadron.
I started Alphabet Squadron 5 times, and I struggled so hard to finish it, man.
You're gonna take me down another path.
That's the beauty.
Sorry.
That's the beauty of like the Force thing. We can all interpret it in different ways. It's
For
great.
sure.
So, what do you think? We've kind of touched on it. What do you think the implications of Avon taking that might be? And do you think we're going to see more of her as she? And have we already? I don't know. I'm not up with the comics. Have we seen more of Avon? And what is she doing with this kyber crystal? What might happen because of or as a result of her having it?
Ooh, she could sell the research. She could sell it to somebody. Like there's that really big conglomerate in Catalyst that hired Galen Urso that already started research on that stuff. You know, that could have been where she could have sold it to that giant conglomerate. I can't remember the name of that company.
I mean, Avon is chaotic neutral at best, so she could really take this in any way because she's a very science first type of person. So I don't know. I love how each book is kind of introducing, a non-force sensitive, highly intellectual person that we are like these wild cards. What she could do with it, I mean, she could go as far as making weapons, or
what if she makes
I think it's gonna
the
be
lightsaber,
weapons.
the gun that Jocasta uses in Vader? What if she like designs that?
Right. I think the implications are huge, and when I read it, like red flags went out everywhere. Even at the very beginning, when she was first talking about how she distrusts the Jedi for these different reasons, using the Force and not understanding it. Right. For her, magic isn't such a thing. Right. There's got to be a scientific reason for it. She chases the science behind it, and she's experimenting with those crystals, and she wanted to experiment with a kyber crystal, and the Jedi wouldn't let her touch them. So she held a bit of animosity towards them, a distrust of them, and I could see it going into a place that will come into play later.
The only thing I have to say on that is that Justina Ireland, the author of this novel, mentioned how the Staros clan being depicted in the High Republic is meant to, it's obviously not like the A plot of the High Republic, right? But whatever happens is meant to show us how they get from this place of power to being criminals when we have Sana. So that's been mentioned. So I do think we will see her again. I don't know what the implications are. I think her maybe designing that lightsaber gun is pretty cool. I think I just thought of that. That's a connection to canon. And Charles Soule wrote that, so maybe he'd be like, design this. And there's been a lot of connections like that so far. But otherwise, I don't know.
Yeah, I need one of our mods to take care of that comment. That'd be great. But I really love the book. I think it works really well. And you mentioned Alphabet Squadron. So one question I like to ask towards the end of it, as a whole, how would you grade it, or what would you think of the book, Test of Courage?
Is 10 1 to 10?
Well, however you like to do that.
Well, rating the last book we did Into the Dark, and although before we finish, I do want to hear, because we covered a lot of the beginning of the book, and I do want to hear Choco's take on some of the stuff in the beginning. But I've actually warmed up to Into the Dark more since we've talked about it last. So I think I gave that book a B+. I think I'd give it an A- now, and I think this would be like a B+.
Excellent. What do you say, Gray?
I really enjoyed Into the Dark. I would have put that one at a B. This one I would say C.
All right.
Which Aftermath gets an A. Sorry.
Likewise, I would give Aftermath an A as well.
And Bloodline.
Very good.
Bloodline's a definite A. Yeah, I can get it there.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, Dark Choco, what do you think?
Yeah, so for me, I really enjoyed the book. I mean, I like how we got the three stories. One was really macro, and then the next one was like around here, and then this is a really small story, and it really kind of dove deep into like these characters like personalities and who they really are and how they see things. But overall, I'll give it a 6 out of 10. Whereas I actually loved Into the Dark. I loved Orla specifically. It was just,
It's pretty cool.
I don't know, top notch. And
She's gonna be in the comics. I'm so excited.
Yeah, I thought of having way seekers and stuff is just super cool to me.
I love that too.
Yeah.
And also we stand Geode over here, so
I love Geode.
Yeah.
I like Geode a lot myself. I enjoyed Into the Dark. For me, I'm close to you, Dark Choco. It's a 6 or 7, maybe 6.5. I do like the scope of it. It's easy to connect with the characters and understand what's going on. And the implications of this book are much greater than I think the book has gotten attention for. So I think the potential of it having impact in the overall story is quite high. Not only for Vanessa, but also the other supporting characters.
For me, I think I liked it so much because I went in, to be honest, with such low expectations because I'd heard such negative things. It's true of all of the High Republic content, really. I'd heard, you hear such negative things, and you're really going in with low expectations, especially for this book, it being a young reader. And there was a lot of noise about Justina Ireland too, and it was all in my brain, negativity rattling around in my brain, and so it surpassed my really low expectations. I was really satisfied. I really enjoyed just the vibe. I love the frontier setting of all the High Republic stuff. It evokes that similar Mandalorian vibe of like the Old West, and all just the politics of this time in Star Wars are super interesting to me. Of the Republic expanding and the way it's interacting with these new worlds, and so I really fell for it. I thought it was pretty fun.
I want to ask a related question, and it's because I get asked it from time to time. For somebody who's not read the High Republic novels, and they come and say, "Hey, I've heard a lot of dissonant things about the High Republic. What do you think? Should I check it out or not?" So I think I know the group here and how you're going to respond. But how would you answer that question? Of the 3 books that we have, plus the comics or whatever else that you would like to bring into the discussion, how would you recommend to somebody where the High Republic fits in as far as enjoyment of Star Wars lore, Star Wars stories, the universe, all of that?
I think that people who do not like the new canon Star Wars, like any of them since Disney took over, which is a giant chunk of Star Wars people, I don't think they're going to like it no matter what you say. But I think the people who just like Star Wars and want to give it a chance, I would recommend it just for the moving on of the story and for you to learn what's to come later. So I would recommend people to read it, as long as they're not in that group of hating all canon Star Wars.
Very good. Dark Choco, what do you think?
Yeah, I've been loving this era, but you have to be open to reading new stuff, But the thing I always like to point out to people, this is not the Old Republic light, it's not, Diet Old Republic. This is a different era. But if you love the Jedi, you want some awesome Force lore. If you watch, the prequels and think, oh man, like the Jedi are really off base here, read this, because this is them doing what they're supposed to be doing.
Mm-hmm.
And we get to actually see the cracks that are starting to form in the Jedi Order, and we can see why they ended up close to the Republic. And I'm trying to spoil anything in the future.
I was like, I know you've read it. I know you've read Rising Storm. You get out of here. Get out of here with that. Get out of
But
here.
it's just a really cool era, and the books are actually really well written. And this is not it's not a bunch of kiddie stuff. Well, this book is a young reader, but when you read, Light of the Jedi, it takes no prisoners, and those books going forward still are not taking prisoners.
I don't feel that it's a young read, so I wouldn't say, hey, take it for what it is as a young read. I just find it to be a decent book. A few things, like I said, I was unhappy with it, but after the discussion, it definitely made me be less critiquing of some of my initial thoughts.
Levi,
It's kind of like what.
Yeah, go ahead.
Oh, I'm just gonna say it's kind of like what Clyda Gray said about YA books, and she's like, "That's what Star Wars is. Star Wars has always been coming of age. That's what YA is people who are, teenagers who are coming of age. That's exactly what every Star Wars era has been.
That's why Lost Stars is the best.
Lost Stars. I meant to say, sorry, Lost Stars is my favorite Star Wars book. Like, all around. I love that book.
I have permission from my wife to name our firstborn son Thane. So
Nice.
So Levi, where do you put the High Republic?
Well, I wanted to answer your question about A Test of Courage specifically, but in terms of the High Republic, I think something that people had a lot of problems with the sequel trilogy was that they felt it was unplanned, which is a fair criticism, I suppose, if that's what you're looking for. But the thing about the High Republic is I think it's setting out to answer a really important question. And as Choco talked about, it is why the Jedi are the way they are in the prequels. And I think that is a super fascinating and interesting period of time that like I want to see why that is. And so that's what keeps me reading. Besides the fact that it's enjoyable and I've thought it's been well written so far. But in terms of A Test of Courage, as a lot of the other Star Wars pundits have said, if you're getting into the High Republic, Light of the Jedi is what you're going to want to go to. That's like the mainstay. And it's interesting because I actually read the comics before I read this book, and Vernestra Rowe and Emery appear in the comics. And they're there. They have the master and apprentice dynamic, and I was able to pick up on it. And I was like, I know that this character is from a book I haven't read yet, but here it is. And I didn't feel brought down by it at all. And so, like, I don't know if you need to read A Test of Courage. I enjoyed it, but if you want to read the High Republic, I would definitely recommend Light of the Jedi and Into the Dark. But otherwise, I don't think you're like missing out on much with A Test of Courage. I personally, like I said, really enjoyed it, but I don't know if you lose out if you don't read it.
Yeah. For me, I love Master and Apprentice. It's my number one by far, by far. And then I do enjoy the other books that you guys have mentioned as well. And Aftermath, I've read it over and over again. I enjoy Aftermath a lot. But I would put the High Republic somewhere above Alphabet Squadron. Forgive me.
Me too.
No.
Alphabet Squadron is not doing it for me. It's okay. I went back and read the first book again and enjoyed it more the second time. I'm reading the second book now, and it reinforces that this isn't the best Star Wars I've read. So the High Republic to me comes in above that, as well as Lords of the Sith. And Lords of the Sith is a really good novel. Don't get me wrong. It is really good.
That's what I was going to compare this to, is them being trapped down there to Lords of the Sith. I like that one.
Lords of the Sith is really good, but I knew the whole time that
Vader and Palpatine are going to be okay.
Yeah. Vader and Palpatine are going to win. No, you couldn't set up the kind of tension,
the stakes. Yeah.
Lords of the Sith is like a slog in the best possible way, because it's all just so evil and like dark and like, oh my god.
Yeah. I don't want people to take me wrong. Lords of the Sith is good. It's really good, really really good. But the stakes couldn't be built up for me. The tension couldn't be built up for me. I just knew it was all going to unravel, and I was just waiting for it. And when it does, you're like, okay. The end.
Yeah, Darth Vader had his first hallway scene in that book.
He sort of does, doesn't he?
Yeah, in the beginning. Yeah.
In the beginning, oh my god! It reinforced how extra he is.
I like the High Republic better than Lords of the Sith for that reason. But I think Lords of the Sith is a better book. but the story to me in the High Republic has more open end. I don't know where it's going to go. I don't know who's going to live or who's going to die. I don't know how a story is going to resolve. I have no idea. With Lords of the Sith, I knew, right?
And
So
I think a big part of that is probably, the first High Republic book. Right at the very beginning, it establishes, yes, we're gonna kill people.
Awesome.
Just right at the front of it. Real quick, I wanted to say, to Gray and Santa, I had the same feelings about Alphabet Squadron. Have you read the final book?
not yet.
Okay, so
It's
I read the first one. I was like, okay, it's good. It's not my favorite. I read the second one, and it was like the second one to me was like eating oatmeal, and I was just like,
Oatmeal's pretty
just
good.
shoveling,
Oatmeal's pretty good. Put some
and
cinnamon in there.
and I didn't finish it. And then the third one was coming out, and I was like, okay, let me try the second one again. I liked it so much better the second time, and then the third book is awesome. It's just like
Okay.
So I just wanted to say, because I've had the same exact conversation with Levi before. My camera's mirrored, so I'm not pointing to him. I've had that same conversation with Levi where like I had so much trouble, especially with the second book. I still think it's the weakest. Once you hit the third book, this thing is like a rocket. So I implore you guys to consider Lords of the Sith is really low on my canon list. I feel like from what you guys are saying, we probably have similar thoughts on a lot of them. Although I had trouble with the first Aftermath book.
Well, let me kind of finish the comparisons by saying Thrawn is killing it. So if you were to pick the five,
I can't get into the Thrawn novels. I listen to them, I know them, but they're not really that interesting. The second one by far was so uninteresting to me.
Oh,
The
geez.
second one of which trilogy? Which
The
of the three trilogies?
canon. I'm canon.
Well,
I know which canon trilogy.
There's only one canon trilogy.
Now there's two.
There's two.
There's
The new one. Sorry, the new one.
there's the Ascendancy where he is
in the Ascendant. Like
Are you talking about Greater Good?
Yeah, you're talking about Greater Good, or are you
Yes.
talking about
No, I'm talking about the second book in
Okay,
the
Alliances.
Alliances?
Alliances.
Yeah.
that's what I thought.
With
Yeah.
the one where Padme was on that
Yeah,
planet and the little boat and stuff.
Count Dooku's cousins.
Yeah.
So
Oh, I like that with the Sereno guy and stuff. That was cool, but the Clash of Fate with the Dark Spire and stuff. Those books were really good. If anybody wanted to give like Cardinal a chance,
Clash of Fate I hated, but
Well, to tie it, the Alphabet Squadron talking back into the High Republic.
yeah.
For me, like the character building of Into the Dark is like you take that from Into the Dark, and then you take like the galactic events and action of Aftermath, and you make that into a book. And for me, that's Alphabet Squadron. It's just like great characters and a really cool setting, and that's what
It's for me. If I were to pick between High Republic and Thrawn, I'd take Thrawn right now. But I think this is really good. The four of us are all enjoying the new canon stuff, but the four of us have different opinions about where some of it strikes us and some of it doesn't, right? And it's hard to tell somebody who just comes out from the cold, should I read High Republic or not? It's like, well, I don't know. Look at the four of us. And this is why I love doing these as a panel discussion, because you get a variety of tastes and interests. And for the High Republic, I think they're all have different tastes and interests in mind. I know that Josh with the Den of Nerds and Theory, they haven't gotten into it and didn't click with them. But that's not to say that you new user or viewer might not like them. It attracts each of us differently, and it's going to affect you differently. And for you to try it, I've always encouraged people. I've got my library card right here. Right, get yourself a public library card, and you can check these things out for free. You get
And
the
that's what
hard-
I do. That's what I do. I use the app from the public library and check out all my audibles.
It's fantastic. And
just-
all of these, you can get the Thrawn novels, you can get the High Republic novels, all free on audio from your public library. Try it, right? Listen to a book. Do you like it? Great. If you
Listen,
don't,
kids,
you have a
Santa's
book.
telling you reading is fun.
and for me, I've gotten more out of reading it on Kindle than I did listening to it. But I love listening to the books. They're really well done. The scores to them are good. The narration is good. The voices, everything is really good. So, and I know that Mark Hamilton, one of our supporters here, Mark can't. He's not into the whole audio thing. He tried, didn't
Neither
work.
am I. I can't do it either.
Yeah,
I don't really read books. I listen to them all.
I'm with you, Gray. I listen to more than I read, but
I'm very busy. I'm a very busy person. If I had more time, I'd probably read.
well, I would just go ahead. Go ahead.
For me, because I most of what I've gone through has been through audio, although I do both. What I have found is that if I am doing an audiobook and I raise the speed on it,
that's what I do. Yeah.
Instead of it being like you're listening to each word, that because I have trouble focusing on that, when I raise the speed to like 1.8 or something like that, I'm not listening to each word. It's just like the thoughts are just pouring into my head.
I listened to it at 1.50.
The neat thing about it is it's not like the old days.
Crazy.
It sped up a record, right? So the voices don't go high. It's not listening to
Although the music,
you don't lose track of your focus in the pauses.
right.
I find that the pauses of the sentence, I'll be like, and if you eliminate all pauses, you get like, it's like one long sentence story, but it's easier.
Right. If you listen to the audiobooks, I agree. I listen to 1.5 to 2.0 sometimes.
Mhm.
It just compresses the pauses and it gets shorter. The words go by really fast, but they're not higher. It's not like listening to chipmunks for 2 hours or for 7 hours. It moves along. So for me, I agree with Dark Choco. Like, pick up the speed a little bit. I'm currently listening to the Second Alphabet Squadron book at 125. Right. So, and it's moving along just fine.
I've just never been able to do it. I can't focus. I'll just get distracted. Like for me, when I read, I like being able to create a mental image and then pausing and then rereading it again. So I really get into like the setting of a scene. And with an audiobook, it just is going and
it took me a year to adapt my brain to listen to audiobooks, though. It took me an entire year. Over that year, I had to re-listen to everything I listened to a couple times to train myself.
Unlearn what you've learned, I guess.
That's part of why I've gone through Aftermath so many times as well. Mm-hmm. It was the book, those books were the ones that trained me to listen.
Me too.
So I'm the same.
Final recommendation, though, on the High Republic is if you find yourself not able to get a library card or you don't want to go invest your time into a whole novel, I would recommend maybe trying out the Marvel comic run. And if you like an issue or two of that, I think the first arc of that, which is now done, really encapsulates the vibe of the High Republic, and it includes characters from all the novels.
I enjoyed the comic very much.
So if you think you might be interested, that's a cheap alternative to see if you're interested in the era as a whole. And then
I think Mark Hamilton is doing that, and he's enjoying it so far. Really good.
And if you go,
and I want to point out, Kevin Scott's book is coming out for the rest of us. Some of us don't have an early copy to read.
Choco down there, yeah.
I mean, I don't.
I don't know what you're talking about.
I know. Some of us are just plebes, and we have to wait for it to come out. But it's coming out very soon, and it's one of the books that I've been most excited for a very long time. I've enjoyed the Thrawn novels. Come November, I'm going to be like dying to get my hands on that Thrawn novel. But right now, the book that I am really excited to get to read is Rising Storm. I can't wait.
High York fan club.
It's coming. It's coming, and it's
so
June release. So we have
Is it New Republic?
It's High Republic.
High Republic.
That's what I meant. High Republic. Sorry.
Yeah, it's High
Wave
Republic.
2.
Okay.
And Darth Choco, you've got your. Have you finished it already?
It might be my favorite.
Excellent. So we have a lot to look forward to. And look, I want you guys to understand.
Tease.
Anybody? Yeah, good. The importance of this conversation at the end is one of the ones that I really want to come out. First of all, we did want to talk about the book, right? And I think we covered it really well. And to show everyone that not every fan is alike, and not every fan is going to connect to material the same way, be it audio, visual. Some people can't do the Kindle. You need to have that paper in your hands. All of that is important. Hardback, paperback. Try it. Find the method that you like. I like what Levi said. Reading is fun, kids. Sam is not a big reader myself. I don't read a lot, but I've gotten into it more with the Star Wars novels. And the High Republic, it may not be for everybody, but there's some good stories in there. There's some really compelling characters being developed in there. And at least take the time to try to check it out. Whatever method you can, please do yourself a favor, check it out. And if it's not for you, fine, move on, But I think that we've got a nice kind of spread here between the four of us to let you all know that there's plenty in there to enjoy. And with that, I think I want to go ahead and wrap it up. Thank you so much, Darth Choco, for getting out of bed and spending some time with us.
I was thinking that it was starting at 10 a.m. my time, so I'm like drinking coffee, preparing, and then like I see like you gonna join? No, I really wanted to talk about this.
Yeah,
hopefully I get invited to the next one. And
yeah, I don't know, man.
That's make amends.
Look, I appreciate you coming on. I know I got to go on to one of your streams and to visit with your folks. It's been great. I thank you so much from the bottom of my heart for coming in, spending some time with us. Thank you so much. And Levi, I really appreciate you getting up early. And my friend Gray, you're dear to me, and I love you so much. Thank you for coming in and sharing the thoughts of these novels with everybody. You guys are all the best. And you guys in the chat, Normies to Nerds, yes, you caught the end. You'll have to go back and watch it. Thank you all for being here. I've got a little poll out there just for a fun thing to do in Discord. Your predictions for the next episode of the Bad Batch. You can vote and see if you can out forecast Santa. We had one person do it this last week, and we're going to feature them in our chats or in our discussion this week. We had I gotta recognize Trex Killer out. Forecast Santa this week, so Trex Killer gets the bragging rights. You've got another chance to beat Santa this week. Go in and put your predictions for episode 6 of the Bad Batch and see if you can beat Santa. And we'll give you
Rex on the wind. Is it a Rex on the wind? Maybe so.
Yeah, it's really tough to tell at this point. So come check us out on Discord. Again, everybody, thank you so much for being here. I can't wait to talk to you the next time. And until then, Merry Christmas, everybody. May the Force be with you.
Bye, everybody.